What's up guys, it's Flameon from Flameon Miniatures, and today I would like to present to you the second video tutorial about painting the first Mordor Orc miniature from Lord of the Rings series. On today's video I will be working mostly on his clothes and his face, but before we go to the video I would like to ask you to hit that subscribe button below in order to don't miss the latest videos. Okay, so let's start painting. I will start with his face, and as a base color for him I decided to go with dark sea blue because I was thinking about all the possible colors that we can use on orcs, and as we could see in the movie they were mostly dark brown skinned, reddish skinned. But because he already has red cloth, I wanted to have some different color on his face. Well, it would simply be a bit too much of the same color around. And now I'm mixing flat brown with black paint in order to create really dark brown paint. That is going to be a base color for his hair. And leather straps and other brown details on the miniature. I don't have such dark brown. Maybe I need to look out for a new paint. But so far mixing flat brown with black paint worked perfectly fine for me. So this is what I'm using also today. It's basically, I mixed it basically to the point where this brown is almost black, and as you can see on the video, I'm painting his hair with it right now. Now leather straps, bottom parts of his so-called shoes, boots, everything that's supposed to be brown. Okay, and now is very interesting color, dark blue-gray, which is kind of a pale blue-gray paint. And I will use it as the brightest color for his face because, yeah, and this is the problem with a paint that I didn't use in a really long time. It's a bit dried out. So yeah, I'm starting with painting a very specific shape on his face. Look on it, how I'm painting, what I'm painting. I'm painting his cheekbone, I'm painting his upper lip and space between them, leaving, I paint it in this shape. And whatever kind of face you're painting, is good to paint it in this way. Don't just try to follow the sculpture, because this is a normal way of this how light reflects on faces. So if you want to have normal looking face, try to make something like this, because these are the points that are usually the brightest on the face. The same thing is happening on his very big forehead. Poor orc is already losing his hair, and what I created now is like basic shape of a face. This is normal looking face. If you will paint your faces in similar way, they will look more natural. Even though this is an orc, it's good to go in this way and try to create more natural shapes for him. And now I mixed these two paints in order to create a mid-tone that I will use now for creating darker reflections and for making transitions between this very bright dark blue-gray color and this dark sea blue that I use as a base for the face. And I'm painting, at this point I'm painting reflections on his jaw in order to make more visible jawline. And this is how colors, how light on faces usually works when a person is illuminated from front. You have reflections on mouth, upper lip and forehead, nose and cheekbones. Then you have a bit shaded area below, and then you have reflection on the jawline. And now what I'm doing is that I'm already creating transitions between these dark blue-gray and dark sea blue paint. And I'm creating, by painting on the edges of areas painted with dark blue-gray, very tiny scratches with the mixture of these two paints. On the beginning, on the part 1 of this video, I exactly explained how I'm painting these stripes. The whole idea is that I have very small amount of paint on the tip of my brush, and I'm painting very tiny, thin stripes with it, which I try to paint in a way when I barely scratch, so-called, the surface of a miniature with my brush. Thanks to this, I'm leaving really tiny, really thin, a bit transparent stripes. And because they look like this, I can work a little bit like a tattoo artist. So I paint many of them, and in places where I paint just a few of them, they are barely visible. The more I paint of them, the more visible they are. But thanks to that, they allow me to create smooth color transitions. And now I'm painting a smaller shadow under his focus point on his forehead, because forehead is still a three-dimensional object. Of course, we could paint it in many different ways, but I just want to make sure that everyone sees that he has a giant forehead. And yeah, that's why I'm painting now plenty of tiny stripes. Unfortunately, my camera took focus on his sword, but there are also moments when bad camera. What can I say? Out of all the details, it decided to go with the sword, but the sword is straight object with gray colors. Cameras like to focus on things like that. So as you can see, many more stripes. They are everywhere and they work really great. You can later I will make yeah, as you can see now I'm making a few details that were bright previously a bit brighter, also by painting tiny stripes, because they became a bit too dark in the process of creating smooth transitions. So that's basically the entire process. I just do the same thing over and over again. Just keep in mind that from the most important things, the shape that I just presented to you, that I painted on his face, yeah, it's important to have this connection between cheekbone and upper lip. It's usually people are not painting it, and then faces look really weird. And remember that the reflection that is now you can see on the jawline has to be painted with darker color than reflections above, because jawline is usually not illuminated directly, so it's supposed to be a bit darker. And now, as you can see, I think that this face looks pretty nice. Of course, I need to fix a few shapes. Yeah, and what is funny is that because I'm using now dark blue-gray as the brightest color for his face, and I used the brightest color for non-metallics that I used were just blue-gray pale, and the entire miniature is dark, but doesn't look, none detail look like it's too dark and not well visible, because they are all in similar tonation. And yeah, now I'm painting obviously his eyes. I prefer to paint orcish eyes with yellow ochre paint. It's yellow that is not so saturated, but works. Its covering is better than standard yellow. That's why I prefer to work with it. And yeah, these are orcs. I imagine that using yellow color for their eyes is a pretty good idea, better than using colors that we use for humans or elves. After all, they are creatures of evil. Yeah, and when you are painting the other eye, it's good to change position of the miniature in order to have a comfortable grip, because comfortable grip is everything when it comes to painting miniatures. Your wrist must be able to move in very comfortable way. And now I think that it's important to also make this I forgot, eyelid, I guess is the word. His eyelids a bit brighter in order to make the whole face be more clearly visible where one detail starts and another ends, and that's why I want to right now. Oh no, this is not the moment that I thought. Sorry for this weird visual effect. These are unfortunately my hair in camera. So yeah, now I'm painting pupils, what is not easy, I know, and I would highly recommend you to try to not paint them exactly in the middle of the eye, but make him look in some way, look to the left or look to the right. Miniature looks somehow more natural when they are looking in some direction, and when you are trying to paint a pupil exactly in the middle of the eye, usually everyone is failing at this, and we end up with bad looking eyes. And now reflection in the pupils. It's like very important thing that makes miniature look alive, but it is really hard. It is really hard also for me too. But you just need to remember that this is a really tiny miniature, so people won't really look into his eyes. I'm painting it more for myself. Well, you can actually see the reflection in the eyes. This is true when you have the miniature in your hand, but you won't see really that pupils are a bit crooked because it's too small. And yeah, another thing, when you are, will I fix the eyelid? No. When you are painting teeth, don't use white paint. Never use white paint. Use something darker. Right now, as you can see, the base for his teeth was brown paint. Any brown paint will work. And now I'm painting highlights on them with stone gray. And it's enough. Absolutely enough. Especially when you are painting an orc. They don't clean their teeth. I'm pretty sure they also do not remove stains from them in any other way, so they would have rather yellowish teeth. Yeah, he has a weird looking face expression, but well, who am I to judge? Maybe between orcs he looks really fine, and all of his colleagues are thinking that he is completely normal. So yeah, his teeth look a bit weird for me. So now I'm painting his hair, and my camera went a bit too bright. Yeah, much better. So this is flat brown. It's like my basic brown. Of course, when you are painting, you have a few ideas for colors of hair, but I don't know. I wouldn't go with blonde when it comes to orcs. Rather, maybe black, gray, brown, reddish a little bit, but blonde, I don't see that. So I'm painting the sculpted details separately, as you can see. That's what I always do. I paint everything ever separately. I like to paint. And when you have this parts of his hair that are flat. That's actually pretty cool because you can easily paint stripes of hair and don't fight with sculpture, so sometimes it's better when it's just flat. Okay, so flat brown it is. Now let's go and fix this eyelid, because I think that, yeah, that I want to have visible space between eyelid and eye. Of course, in life it looks different, but when you have very small miniatures, you need to have stronger contrast for them. And now I'm mixing stone gray with flat brown for highlights on the hair. And don't try to highlight entire structure of hair. Hair don't work in this way. They are they are a bit glossy, and that's why it looks better when you just paint some reflections on hair. Don't make everything brighter. Make reflections on them. That's what I do now. I just place in a few, not entirely random, I more or less feel at this point, because I have many years of experience with painting. So I'm painting reflections on hair. It's good to have one reflection that for sure needs to appear is this in here on top of his head, close to his head, because it's rounded in there, so it would reflect light. And then on the bottom, these are the places where back of his skull is still rounded. That would absolutely reflect light. And then I reflect a few places on the bottom just to make the hair look more interesting. But this reflection on top of the back of his head is very important. It's realistic to paint it in this way. Of course, like I said many times before, if you are painting for a tournament that is going to be very soon, then you would probably paint his hair with dry brush technique. Maybe I should make a video on which I will paint the same model but only with dry brush technique, and we will see what we can achieve with that. That will be completely different looking miniature. Like completely. Maybe it's a good idea. Okay, so reflections. Yeah, just they should appear suddenly. And thanks to that, they will look more realistic. Okay, this is how he looks with his hair painted. Okay, now let's go to other details. Black grey, London grey. And then I will make mixture of these two. Okay, so I wanted to paint a black robe, black cloth on the back of him. And the first thing I do is that I mark reflections. The brightest color that I will use is London grey, and I'm more or less trying to follow reflections that I can see in my hand when I hold the miniature in my hand. But also there's a rule that these parts of miniature that are facing source of light with its flat surface, they will reflect the light. And black is actually pretty easy for painting because you just paint reflections on black. You don't have to create whole color transitions like on other colors. So yeah, I started with marking these reflections that I think are the brightest, and now I'm marking those that are still reflections but are darker. Those darker I'm painting with black-gray paint, and I will use it also on a few other details and around these reflections, because I want to create progressive reflections with the brightest color, neutral gray, and then the rest reflections with black gray, and later I also use it on sides of these brightest reflections. Thanks to that, it will be easier to me to create smooth transitions between them and black base color. Yeah, and here I didn't realize that this is another part of clothing that he's wearing. It will be green in the next steps. Okay, now, yeah, I'm just painting reflections. Like I said, you can try to follow the reflections that you can see on miniature when you hold it in your hand. Light from your desk lamp will reflect on the miniature, so you will see it. Now I mix these two together to have the mid-tone that I can use now for creating color transitions. Just as I explained it to you before, big amount of tiny thin scratches that are half transparent. Thanks to that, I apply a lot of them, and this is how I create smooth transitions. This is the same. Like, imagine if you would be painting something with color pencils or with pencil. Try to create color transition between dark and bright. This is the same technique. I'm just scratching the surface with it. So yeah, now I do the same with every detail between London grey and black grey. And now it's time for my favorite mixture, which is black, gray and black. And I honestly don't know why nobody is producing color like this that is almost black but not entirely. And with this mixture I can make the final color transitions between black, gray and black base color. Yeah, so I'm doing the same thing. Yeah, thanks to the fact that this is an orc, a tiny miniature from Lord of the Rings, that is not very important. I can make it quicker to don't create the color transitions that I usually create that look like computer generated. It's very refreshing. Actually, for me, this is really speed painting, and I don't even know where time flies by when you are having a good time, and this was really nice for me to see that details are appearing so quickly. So yeah, it's like more of the same right now. Like I mentioned many times before, it's very important to have a comfortable grip. I am right-handed, so I have to reposition the miniature in a way that allows me to comfortably move my wrist from right on the left side. I wish I could work with both hands. That would help with so many things like sculpting. But the biggest problem is always with painting eyes, because when you change position of a miniature, when you are painting its eyes, then you loose feeling of the whole you somehow lose how the first eye looked when it was positioned, and it's problematic. Okay, so now I'm making a few shadows darker with pure black paint, because on black cloth it's very important to have black color. You cannot make everything go gradually from black to gray, because then you will just have dark gray cloth. That's why there where you can, you need to make short straight line, not straight, not exactly straight. What I mean is that you need black color, you need black shadows painted with black paint, a bit like in a comic book. Thanks to this, then it looks more realistic. And now yellow olive, so I start working with yellow color. I use this paint so rarely, so as you can see, their density is much higher than my other paints. That's why it's always hard to say how much water you need to add to paint, because density of every paint is different. So now I mixed the first one with black paint, creating basically black green. So I then made a new mixture with smaller amount of black, because I want to have very dark green, but not that dark, because, well, it will be useful later, but at this point I want to have dark green base for his cloth. Yep, and as you can see, I'm now painting with it. So this is the base color. I will later highlight it with other paints. And yeah, this is the one where I realized that this is supposed to be green. Okay, so now I'm highlighting with pure yellow olive. I'm just painting quickly with, I'm not creating layers of paint that I will later smoothen out. I just go and paint everything a bit quicker. Well, you see what I'm doing. So now I'm making a few shadows a bit deeper, darker, with the mixture that on the beginning turned out to be too dark, because I still need dark shadows. Thanks to having really dark shadows, I can use a bit darker colors, and these colors look nicer then, because I create contrast in this way. And if I saw correctly, this was medium olive, and I'm mixing it with yellow paint, because now I want to create real highlights, but not too bright. And as you can see, this time I'm painting by already painting tiny scratches, because it's quicker this way. Of course, you need to think about the details that you are painting, what you want them to look like. If I will create a bit of structure here, then the cloth will only look more realistic, so I'm not going with super smooth transitions. I'm just painting stripes with this color. And I use this color and I highlight it with yellow ochre, because I want this color to be brighter green, but rather paler green. I don't want to have really saturated colors in here, because this is an orc. They are using rather dark and pale colors on them, and this is what I'm taking from our world, that for many years the cheapest colors, the cheapest cloths, materials and colors were those that look like that are brown or green, because these were the cheapest pigments that you could get. So except for this red clothing on the top of him that I painted specifically in order to create contrast, I like to use rather darker colors like this green. This green is absolutely something that some poor person in Middle Ages could wear. I'm not sure how it was with black color. Okay, so now I'm painting his legs with black gray because I think that he would be wearing something. If he would wear his armor on legs that are naked, he would have blisters, etc. So I imagine that even in Mordor army, where I also imagine that life of orcs is not very important, this is simply a mistake that they wouldn't do because he would be simply less effective in a fight. So I imagine he is wearing something on his legs, and because I already used red, green and brown colors, the safest color to use is always black. So in this case I'm not going to exactly black because if I would highlight it stronger, there is possibility that it would create problem between black and the steel NMM on his leg armor. So I'm going to just highlight it a little bit more. And as you can see, in a bit different way, I don't create sudden reflection, I create smooth color transition from darker to brighter. Thanks to that, it doesn't look like metal, it just looks like dark gray thing. And that's exactly what I intended this to look like, so I'm happy with the result. And now I forgot about these few details in here. So yeah, this is going to be black, and in a moment I will slow down the video to present to you. Yeah, this is the real speed of painting. This is how I create these color transitions. This is how I paint those stripes. Yeah, this video should be a bit longer, but there is no reason for that. I think just a few moments where I present to you the real speed will work just fine, because everything I paint in this way. Yeah, now mixture of black, gray and black paint for the transition between the black and black gray. And here is a detail that I decided to paint with green because it looks like a different part of clothing, but I don't get which exactly. So I could actually go with black or green, but I think that if I will paint it with green, it will simply look nicer. So I go with green. I paint it in the same way like other details that were green. Okay, now mixture that I used for his, I don't remember for what, mixture of stone gray and flat brown. So I create reflection on his leather straps and yeah, flat brown and stone gray. So I create reflection on the leather straps and on his, let's say, boots. But first I paint them with pure flat brown, and now paint sides of the reflections on the leather straps. In general, reflection on leather straps should be a bit more sudden, because leather elements were usually being conserved with different types of animal fat that made them more glossy, but this also prevented them from getting dry, cracked and then breaking. So when you are painting leather straps and stuff like this, if you want to be more accurate, you should make them a bit more glossy and reflective. That's why this reflection over there is like, it's optional. I really don't know what to do with his boots, so I'm just painting them with brown color. They're not the most important details on the miniature, let's face it. mm, his sword, his face, his shield. These are the most important elements of the miniature. And the scale armor too. So yeah, nobody cares about the shoes too much. I'm just saying that because I need to comment the entire video. Okay, so this is a bit darker mixture of stone gray and flat brown, and with it, as you can see, I'm painting vertical stripes in order to create transition between the reflection and the base color. And now I'm using this color for the bottom part of the boots because I want them to look a little bit different than the straps, and then I use brighter color, so I changed the idea because I decided that stronger contrast simply looks more interesting, so I will make stronger contrast. These are just boots, nobody cares. Let's make them more visible, and that's it. Yep. So yeah, I continue doing that. And I'm, as you can see, once again, not painting the entire boot, I'm just creating reflection on the front of it because I imagine that the orc is illuminated from the front above, so sides of the boots should be darker than front and back. Okay, so he is almost done. Now it's time for the base. How to make... This is a very simple base with a very big bush on it, so I want to cut parts of it because I think that this is too big for the scale of my orc. As you can see, I have classic static grass and static grass that you can buy that is already prepared in bushes like this. And I will make a video. I actually made a video tutorial about making this base. This base is from this specific video. It's about making, as you can see, very simple basic base. And I will upload it in a few days. Right now, yeah, I just need to cut off the metal wire pin. And I need to, check out where he will stand the best, drill a hole in my base. Now I will have trash in my static grass. Okay, he fits, he looks nice, but I have problem with the position of his other leg and something on his face. So I will need to remove a few grains of sand from the base and cut a bit of his foot. Yeah, he just doesn't want to stand in the way how he's supposed to. So in a moment, this is the reason why he doesn't want to stand the way he's supposed to. Now he works better, so I glue the brush. So I glue the base to a cup. I first paint sides of it with black paint because it got a bit of brown paint on it, and I want this to be fixed. I'm painting with big brush and with big brush and fast movements. Now a glue. a bit on his foot and a bit on this metal part. Now let's take it to the base, and you should hold him like this for a moment, but not very long, and there it is. This is how he looks after he's painted entirely. Yeah, this is a turntable presentation. It seems to me that he's still a pretty dark miniature. I'm pretty happy with how the face looks and the shield, and I'm really happy with this rusty element. I hope you like it too. Okay, so thank you for watching this video tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to subscribe and give a thumbs up to my video if you enjoyed it, and see you on the next one. Bye!